Hi everyone, this is Dr. Russell with Serenity Natural Health Center, and today we're going to be talking about a key relationship that most of us probably ignore or don't even think about. So, life in America for most Americans is extremely stressful, right? If you're a normal American, your schedule is super packed, trying to balance, family life and work, taking care of yourself, maybe if you have time to do that, having a social life, catching up with friends, being on social media. There's a lot of things going on. So it's really easy to feel overwhelmed and stressed out. There's something that we do 87,000 times in our life, and for some reason, it's one of the first things that we kind of put off whenever we're stressed out. And that relationship we tend to ignore first when we're stressed is food. So if you live about 80 years, you're going to be having over 87,000 meals in your entire lifetime. And that involves a lot of work, right? Because you're planning it, you're preparing it, you're eating it. So just like you would invest time in a healthy relationship with your spouse or your kids or your friends, we don't even think about investing time in our relationship with our food. So there's a few questions we can ask ourselves to begin to evaluate our relationship with food. So how often do you stop eating because you think you should, but not because your body actually feels satisfied? And do you even know what that means to feel satisfied from eating? Do you feel guilty when you eat to the point that you're stuffed and uncomfortable? Do you usually pick food based on their calorie content? And do you watch what other people eat and use that to see how much you'll eat? These are some questions you can ask yourself to see if your relationship with food is where it should be. If you answered yes to any of these questions, you might want to spend more time evaluating your relationship with food. And the link to the full quiz is on the renfrewcenter.com. And this is just an example of some more questions that they have about relationships with food. Luckily for us, food is very forgiving. So if you are not great to it today, you can be great to it in the next meal or even the next moment. So there's a few tips we're going to go over on things you can do to help improve your relationship with food. The first tip we're going to talk about is just paying attention to what hunger feels like. So there's different kinds of hunger. We don't seem to realize that. Most of us, when we think of hunger, we think of hunger for food, which is definitely something that happens. But there's also hunger for social interactions, or there's other hungers that might feel that's anxiety that we misinterpret as hunger. So a good example I give is sometimes if you feel anxious, you might actually feel it in your upper chest. And for some reason, we mistake that as feeling hungry. If you have physical hunger, you might actually feel that in your upper abdomen, and you might hear, growling or kind of a feeling of emptiness over there. We even have eye hunger, so we've heard that expression, my eyes were bigger than my stomach. So sometimes just looking at food is a type of hunger. The next time you feel hungry, just take a second and kind of ask yourself, what kind of hunger am I actually feeling? Am I actually hungry for food? Or am I hungry for something else? Did I have a really rough day and I'm lonely and I'm upset and I want social interactions or someone to talk to or just to take some time for myself, and I actually don't want those potato chips. So one key step into improving your relationship with food is just paying attention to what actual hunger feels like for you. Another tip for people trying to improve their relationship with food is eating mindfully. So I'm even guilty of this. How many of us, when we eat dinner or eat a meal, we're busy doing something else? We're checking emails, we're watching TV, we're not actually paying attention to what we're putting in our mouth or even realizing what we're eating. You just kind of scarf it down really quickly. So one of the ways to improve your relationship with food is to eat mindfully. So there's a few different ways we can do this. So the first thing I recommend is making eating a sacred time and a sacred place. So set your table nicely, make it an event, put some flowers out, light some candles, set the table, clear the table of any other distractions, no work stuff, no homework or anything like that. Make it something to be celebrated. Then another step of eating mindfully is to actually spend time with your food. So when you plate your food, plate it nicely, make it look presentable. Take a moment to observe the different colors and textures on your food. Smell the food before you eat it. And even take a moment, to say grace or just to thank your food for providing you with nourishment. Personally, I like to say a little mantra, may this food give me the energy to do the work of love. So kind of blessing the food before I eat it. And then when you've done all this and you're actually ready to eat the food, take one bite and notice what the textures are in your mouth, what the flavor is initially, how that changes as you chew. And use this cow as a great example. Cows like to chew their food a lot. So chewing is actually an important part of digestion. So we don't want to skip through that step and rush through and eat food too quickly. So make sure you chew your food adequately. And then after eating that bite, take a minute and kind of check in with yourself again. Now, eating mindfully might seem like a chore, so it does take more time, to go through and set all this up and eat your food, but just give it a shot. One time a week, just one meal a week, go through this ritual, and you might find you feel actually more satisfied with even eating a smaller amount of food. And the last key tip that I tell a lot of people all the time is to give yourself permission to enjoy eating. This might be the most important thing that we talk about with improving your relationship with food. So many people have so many feelings of guilt or, stress involving eating, but you're supposed to eat. Your body can't function without food, so you might as well enjoy it. And I say everything in moderation is okay. If you're eating great 90-80% of the time, having a cookie once in a while is not going to kill you. So if you're going to eat that cookie, you might as well enjoy it and not feel guilty about that experience. Having good health is all about balance, so that includes, mental and emotional health. So sometimes eating a cookie once in a while outweighs the bad effects from the sugar in it. And Jan Chosen Bays, who wrote the book Mindful Eating, which I recommend, it's a great book, said mindful eating replaces self-criticism with self-nurturing. It replaces shame with respect for your own inner wisdom. So it's helping you to reconnect with not only your relationship with food, but your relationship with yourself. So those are some tips on how to improve your relationship with food. Try implementing one of those or even all of them and see how your interaction with food on a day-to-day basis changes.